All right, are we ready?
Lisa's saving me a seat out there.
Okay, we're going to call the meeting to order. Before we start, anybody wishing to speak, there are speaker cards in the back. We ask you to fill them out. We're going to be sending all of this information. Hey, we're going to be sending all of this information to the planning department, so if you want your ideas and thoughts heard, please fill out one of the speaker cards.
Hey, can everyone just keep it down for 2 seconds because Denise has something to say real quick? Thank you, guys.
All right. I think I talked over everybody, but who knows? All right. Eeny, meeny, miny, we're all ready. Okay. Rita, please call the roll.
Okay. Patrice Berlin. Here. John Krotow is excused. Claire, correct? I'm here. You're present. You're not excused. Alex is Becky. Here. Lisa Karagian. Oh, I thought I saw her. Okay, got it. Patrick Lewis.
Here.
Heidi McKay. Here. Richard Niederberg. Here. Eric Previn.
Here.
Craig Radow.
Here.
Rob Schiller.
Here.
Keith Schwallenberg is excused, right?
He's excused.
Yeah.
Oh, really?
Okay.
Yeah, he's working.
He had sent in a thing a few days ago. Richard Welsh.
Here.
Andrew Sussman is excused. Rita Villa here. Denise Wellbang.
Here.
Okay, so we have
This is all from Alex.
11 board members present.
6.
These are Alex handed the stuff out.
So 6 to pass a motion.
For me? Apparently not.
All right.
Denise, I have a point of order that we need to announce at some point whenever you want related to something that happened at the meeting on June 21st. Okay, so may I use that one?
This microphone?
Yeah, just because otherwise
Absolutely.
people won't hear.
No,
And
please.
Peter told me to use the microphone.
Yes, I remember that.
Okay.
We both-
Hi. So I just have a point of order. We need to make a correction to our minutes of June 21st. And this is the first time that this was brought to my attention. But the operating procedures on page 4, the SCNC's operating procedures, say that the president will vote as the last board member on all issues. And if the president's vote results in a tie, the president's vote will not be counted. So at that meeting on June 21st, we had an item 10B, and I have the roll call sheet here. And the fact of the matter is that it was a 7-7 vote with Denise casting that tie vote. And so therefore, that motion, instead of failing, actually passes. So that was a motion, a Transportation Committee motion related to the signal light. Yeah. Sorry, guys, but that's life. Okay, so it's there. We have it. So that's all, and just informing everyone that correction will be posted, and those minutes were already put into the approved and put in. So we'll just make that correction in the next time. So, all right, thank you.
Way to get that win, Pete. Way to get that win.
Is there an agenda for this meeting?
All right.
Yeah.
Staff
Did you do one?
agenda somewhere?
Do we get
Here.
agendas? I don't know.
You can have this one. Give him that one.
If it's an extra one, but
Yeah, I got one.
I'll share it with
Okay.
this end of the table.
All right.
I didn't bring one either.
Oh, you have one?
Thank you, everyone, for coming. I like this. Everybody may speak tonight. I was expecting a whole lot of people, so we were going to draw straws, but it looks like we may be able to hear from everyone. All right. Shall we? Do we have any public comments? Just public comments?
No.
No? Okay.
Yeah, actually, I do, but there was no place to sign up for it on the comment card.
Ah,
Because it's a Harvard Westlake comment
I know.
card.
The
instead
comment
of-
cards are underneath.
Okay.
Okay. You want to make a comment?
I will be brief. I just wanted to say regarding what Rita just brought up, the state is pursuing investigating that signal, whether it happens or not, and it's not really a city matter anyway. So the fact that the motion didn't pass but actually did pass, we're probably not going to send anything to the city anyway because the city's pursuing it. So for those of you that just had your hearts drop because it passed when you didn't want it to pass, it probably doesn't matter anyway because the state's involved and not the city. Thanks.
Okay. Edgar, do you want to make you want to say anything? You've got 15 minutes.
Good evening. Edgar Kaladian with Mayor Brown here on behalf of Harvard Westlake School. First, I want to thank everyone for taking time out of their evening to be here tonight. And for those of you that have read the EIR, the voluminous EIR, and all of the responses to comments, I thank and applaud you for your efforts. Considering that we have made multiple presentations to you, I will respect everyone's time and keep my presentation short. I am happy to answer any factual-based questions that you have this evening. Harvard Westlake owns approximately 25 acres of land on the east and west sides of Coldwater Canyon Avenue, approximately 1/3 of a mile south of Ventura Boulevard. Harvard Westlake has been operating in Studio City since 1937. We acquired the property that we will use for the parking structure many decades ago. The Harvard Westlake campus is developed with various academic, institutional, and athletic buildings, including 2 gyms, an athletic field, and on-site parking. The campus currently serves approximately 900 students and hundreds of employees. The project proposes a 750-space parking structure with a practice field on the roof across from the existing Harvard Westlake campus. The parking structure will be utilized by faculty, staff, students, and visitors to the Harvard Westlake campus. As part of the project, a pedestrian bridge crossing Coldwater Canyon Avenue will be constructed, connecting the Harvard Westlake campus to the parking structure. An open practice field comprised of synthetic turf will be located on the top level of the parking structure. The practice field will not be used for games and will not have any bleachers or a public address system. The field would only be used until 8 p.m. on weekdays and 5 p.m. on weekends. A catchment fence with netting and a maximum height of approximately 76 feet and 6 inches will be installed along the perimeter and atop the rooftop field as a safety precaution, enclosing the field to catch errant balls. The practice field will include LED lighting fixtures located along the roof's perimeter. The practice field lighting fixtures will be designed and located to prevent lighting spillover on adjacent properties. The lights will be turned off by 8 p.m. Monday through Friday, and there will be no lights on weekends or holidays. The project also includes the construction of the pedestrian bridge. The purpose of the pedestrian bridge is to ensure the safety of Harvard Westlake students, faculty, staff, and visitors. The project also involves the undergrounding of approximately 14 power poles along Coldwater Canyon Avenue, which will be a significant aesthetic improvement over the existing conditions. The project is extremely important for multiple reasons, including student safety and the need for athletic fields. Harvard Westlake's existing parking situation was implemented over a period of many years and does not come close to meeting its current demands. At present, Harvard Westlake students, parents, and visitors park in multiple lots on and off campus and on neighborhood streets. The project will eliminate the need for daily neighborhood parking and will enable us to move our bus operation off of Coldwater Canyon and onto the existing parking lots. It will also improve traffic flow on a major thoroughfare, remove all bus parking on Coldwater Canyon, and create no parking zones in front of the campus. Although the parking structure will provide 750 spaces, it will result in a net gain of less than 500 spaces due to the realignment of the main driveway and the relocation of bus parking. From a field perspective, we need an additional practice field to accommodate our existing students who want to participate in the various athletic programs that we provide. Thank you very much, and again, I am here to answer any fact-based questions that you have this evening.
All right.
Hold on.
Time out. Okay. We'll just take one at a time.
Is it just people showing their hand?
Yeah, we'll just take people short. Arden?
He had said he was going to answer questions.
Okay, well then, come up
Yes,
and ask him a
we're good to stay
question. You
there
want
and
to
answer
ask him a question, please?
I just assumed it would be after all the presentations, but
that's
fair
okay.
enough.
Oh, wait.
The
We can-
question is, right now, you're renting your field to outside how much renting of that field are you presently doing?
The field uses are either by Harvard Westlake teams or community-based type organizations. I don't have an exact number of organizations or groups that do.
My understanding is it's quite a high number, and the question is, if they have so much free time within their own field to rent it out, and in a sense, generate money, I can understand that, but it doesn't seem right that they want to build another field because that's going to also
Okay,
be rented out.
that's not a question. Okay,
Okay.
he answered your question.
Well, could I get an answer though, how much, number, what's the number?
I think he said he didn't know.
Hold on one second. Should we let them do their presentation before?
Yeah, why don't we do that?
Yeah, you know what, you're right. Why don't we do the presentation and then we'll get Q&A.
Thank you.
So we're gonna let them do their presentation, then we'll have Q&A from everybody, okay?
Okay. Save Coldwater Canyon?
So if I could use your computer, I use the thumb that works.
Okay, you're on.
No, it has to be hers 'cause she has a
okay,
doodad.
time out. Yeah, she's set up.
Where should that be in terms of the
Oh, excuse me, the board at this time should move over here so if you, to be able to see the screen. Thank you.
Thanks for letting me speak. I'm Sarah Boyd. I'm president of Save Coldwater Canyon, which is a neighborhood organization, all volunteer, and we are working to preserve and protect the scenic beauty, natural environment, safety, health, and welfare of Coldwater Canyon. You may have seen this before. This is a view of the project site from Alta Mesa, looking northwest across Coldwater. So this is up the eastern canyon. That's from about a year ago. This is from just this past weekend. This is another view looking southwest, so hovering above Coldwater Canyon, looking at the project site. And this is another view of that same project site for a bit closer. This is from one of the closer parts of the Avenida Alta Mesa Loop. So this is the view now that those residents have, hundreds of residents up on that loop. And this will be their view after 9 months of excavation. The school is requesting 137 cubic yards of soil to be excavated. Those are the retaining walls. They are 3 times higher than what's allowed in the hillsides. And just to give you a sense of what an extreme variance that is from what's ordinary, what's usually allowed is 1,600 cubic yards, and they're asking for 137,000. So is it 5 times as much? Is it 10 times as much? No, it's 85 times what is usually allowed in the hillside. And they're asking that not as a variance actually, but through the CUP process. This would set a horrible precedent. We've talked about this before. The EIR denies any precedent matter because it says the city should look at everything individually. Of course, it does that, but precedent is a well-established fact. It happens all the time in building. It happens all the time in law. The precedent of this project, if the city allows so many exceptions and so many entitlements, will bode very poorly for other hillsides. It will also be a bad precedent if they're allowed to have a bridge over Coldwater Canyon. And then there's a specific precedent that the bridge would set for Coldwater Canyon, which is that if they're allowed the bridge to the west side, it allows them to establish a beachhead across Coldwater. And we don't know what their plans are beyond this project because they said to the city they have no 10-year plan. I don't know how a school with so much $1 million in assets and in an annual budget could have no 10-year plan. But I'm wondering, how can the community have any binding assurance that the school won't develop any further in 5 years, in 10 years, in 25 years? So their MR1 and the FEIR talks a lot about their parking need, and you heard Edgar just talking about it. I've said before there's a difference between what you need and what you want. But if you look very carefully at their own numbers, they say that they need 265 spaces for their staff, and that they have existing now 578 spaces. So if we just did no project, they would need 313 spaces for their students who drive. They say they want 400. They have 400 student drivers. That's what they're looking for. So we're talking about a difference of 87 spaces, not under 500, which is what he said he wants to increase it. They want to increase it to. So we could also solve this problem through a TDM. We can assume a 2-person carpool, and that would give you some surplus for visitors. We can assume a 3-person carpool, and that would assume more spaces for visitors. Bottom line is they do not need a 200% increase. They've not proven a need of any exact number, but to the extent they've proven anything, it can be solved with a TDM, and all the discussion in the MR1 of need is just hyperbolic, it's exaggeration. The FEIR responses saying why they can't add carpooling claims that Harvard Westlake is unique in its abilities, in its students' after-school activities. I think that every student and parent of students in other schools would be shocked and appalled. I think that's insincere. The school is seeking a vacation of Coldwater airspace. They want the right to put the bridge over public airspace and land. This is an example of them trying to show the community what that might look like. These were balloons that were flying in the wind. They did never, as far as I saw, and I was there for about an hour, were they ever straight up in the air. Regardless of if they were able to show it to us correctly, the private bridge would serve no public purpose. This is an example of one of those balloons. You can see on the red dashes, it went at a diagonal. It should have been, of course, upright. We believe that was a pretty pathetic example of an attempt at transparency. As my 11-year-old son would say, it was an epic fail. But anyway, the vacation of Coldwater airspace has no public benefit, and the bridge would mar the residents' and motorists' view of Coldwater Canyon. And in terms of precedent, there are no man-made bridges or structures anywhere across Coldwater, all the way from Sunset, where Coldwater begins, until the 101 freeway. The 101 freeway obviously serves a public benefit. They also, to make this project, need the vacation of Hacienda West, which is a paper road, which means it's an undeveloped piece of land that could be a road but isn't yet. The legal standard for this is if there is some sort of public use, and it may not be vacated exclusively for private use. But that's exactly what this would be. Their response to that is basically, well, the city has a discretionary action, so they will weigh the cumulative benefits against the environmental impact. So is there a cumulative benefit of vacating a public land for private use? And by the way, it is a public land. The last time in the RDAR, they were saying, the RDAR said that those were owned by Harvard Westlake, and they are not, and they did correct that. So they did correct that indeed the city owns the land, and it has been in the public trust since 1928. Back up. Back up, sorry. I'm eager in my pushing the button. Anyway, so in short, taking the land from the public and giving it to the school for what are they going to do with it? Tear it up to put in a retaining wall would be an irretrievable loss. Bottom line is this project has no public benefit. They say it would have improvement to safety and improvement to traffic flow. They say that it would improve traffic flow by getting buses off of Coldwater because they say buses are a problem. But currently, buses have a 12-foot clearance. They're right against the campus. They make no effect on traffic flow, and students can safely walk from the buses to campus. If you'd like to keep your students safe, keep them on the east side of Coldwater. As I said, a wide clearance. This is the other sidewalk directly into campus. And even if they were allowed to build this project, students would still walk the northern part of Coldwater because they go to Starbucks and they go to Ralph's and they go to other places. They're going to walk where there is currently these little cones. So if they're worried about their safety, oh, and also they're going to jog. They jog, they walk, they jog, they walk. They're doing it all the time. So we had Wexco analyze this. We're going to give you the safety report once it's finalized. It should be tonight or tomorrow. Wexco's opinion was that creating a sidewalk or a barricade or bollards, that is not only a cost-effective but a safer alternative than allowing the kids to be walking there if there is such a concern for their well-being doing that. And also, there are extreme dangers to students if parking moves to the other side of the street. It creates a hazard by creating a necessity for students to be on the other side of the street. And there's nothing that can guarantee they won't jaywalk across the canyon. No guard, no amount of talking to teenagers. Also, at nighttime, we're particularly concerned that that is a specifically, obviously, worse visibility. And if after a game night, when there are hundreds of people filing across the bridge and it's crowded and it's slow, that's exactly the time they're going to jaywalk, and that's exactly the time it's most dangerous. Brohard, who's a traffic expert, and we have just recently sent you guys this information, also said it was a false claim to say that this project would increase safety to pedestrians. It's impossible to prevent at-grade pedestrian crossings. He also said it was a false claim of benefit to moving the buses off Coldwater. And he also said it was a false claim that it would improve traffic flow, because the very few things they are doing, like widening, restriping and stuff like that, are just to offset the significant traffic impacts that the project's going to create. For example, the FEIR claims that the signal that they're going to put up that will allow people to turn left into the parking structure, for example, will be coordinated with Ventura, but it's too far for that to be allowed to get credit. And without that credit, there's already a significant negative impact. This is a 30-month project. This is not a project for the benefit of the public, like, oh, we need fresh water, we need our trunk line fixed. This is just for the school to have parking across the street and a place to play. It's going to have a negative traffic impact during construction. It's 160 truck trips for 9 months every day. The revised haul route goes into more detail. 146 haul trucks, 14 delivery trucks, starting at 8 a.m. But if you look at it, it's actually starting at 7 a.m. because 33 additional cars are arriving, worker cars. Then the trucks start, the 12 delivery trucks, and then there are 12 trips per hour from 9 to 10. 2 truck trips every 10 minutes during a peak rush hour. And the FEIR says only 2 truck trips. Yet FEIR, and the FEIR says the grading activities will somehow not create a significant impact on the surrounding community. The new haul route has another problem. It's now going to go through the 5-legged intersection of Tahunga, Riverside, Camarillo. And that traffic was analyzed in Appendix G43, and Brohard says that was fatally flawed because it was done on Memorial Weekend. This is desirable open space land, folks. They don't deny that. They say that 3/4 of the development site is desirable open space land. That means it's land set aside to be extra protected in the general plan. And if we don't protect these spaces, there won't be any left in the city. What does the general plan say about it? It says that the amount of earth moved in grading operations of desirable open space land should be limited and closely controlled. 85 times the customary limit is not limited or closely controlled. The community plan also says we have to protect single-family and low-density residential neighborhoods from encroachment and other incompatible uses. This project is the epitome of an out-of-scale development that is grossly incompatible. This is a view of the west side. This is the land we're trying to be compatible with. It says, of course, we're not saying you can't develop as long as it's consistent. Single-family homes, conservancy land. Garage. The project site is over now, because they added the Potosi property, over 6.83 acres on the west side. It is inconsistent. Just because school use is allowed doesn't mean that the proposed version of the school use is consistent. The prior use was 4 houses. That was consistent land use. The Hillside Federation agrees with this and says it's inconsistent, grossly out of character, and would destroy the character of the hillside. The east side, across Coldwater Canyon, has 19 plus acres of the campus. Buildings, a field, a pool, parking lots. That is their campus. The west side has single-family homes, desirable open space land, conservancy land, and vacant lots. Then we get into the environmental impact. The FEIR acknowledges the significant negative impact of biological resources, significant and unavoidable loss. And the Santa Monica Mountains Conservancy said it will be the most severe native woodland impact in at least 3 decades. So they have some mitigation measures, because of course they're worried about that. So they want to plant at a 4-to-1 ratio some tiny little oak and walnut trees and take down and destroy the mature trees. I've talked before about how even D-rated trees provide foliage, so I'm not going to talk about that right now. And I'm just going to point out to you that they also say that they can't use bigger ones than the 5 and 10 gallons, because the 15-gallon ones often have root-bound trees. Well, they should get a different, landscaper if they can't pick better trees than that. And of course, there are sensitive species found on site. They're worried a lot, and they talk a lot about how they're going to go ahead of time and take the lizards and the snakes out and replant them, move them. So I hope they see the project warning sign, because they'll come out then. I don't know how they're going to find these guys and move them. But anyway, there's also Cooper's hawk and Rufus hummingbird and Nuttall woodpeckers. And they poo-poo them because they say, well, they may be on the county watch list as threatened and declining, but they're not on the city list. The school has been unwilling to suggest any viable, reasonable alternatives, because anyone they suggest either insists on the 750 parking spaces or insists on a full-size field. But if we use their numbers of their need, again, assuming they don't have a TDM, their need is at most 100 cars. So there is a feasible, reasonable, and environmentally superior alternative, not in the FEIR, but in everyone's obviously logical mind. They need to find a structure that accommodates 100 cars with a half or quarter practice field on the east side. There's no reason for this structure to have lights. They can practice during the school day or right after until the sun sets. And that practice field would still offer opportunities for team drills and practices. We're not talking about a baseball diamond. We're talking about drills. We're talking about, it's not going to be able to accommodate every single one of their sports teams, but it can certainly give them an additional practice field on top of one layer of additional cars. There's widespread community opposition. In fact, the only support that we've ever heard, and it's quite vocal, is from the Harvard Westlake community, because of course it benefits the Harvard Westlake community, and the only benefit is to the Harvard Westlake community. So let's weigh the cumulative public benefits against the environmental impact and the burden to the community. And if you do that, you can come to only one conclusion: oppose the street and airspace vacations, and oppose this inconsistent land use and horrible project. Thank you.
Okay. And thank you. All right. We've done that. We can have some when everybody gets back here. We can do some public comment. Oh, gee, that's not nice.
Yeah, I'm going to get back to
What? I don't know.
Okay, so are we on the public comment?
Madam Secretary. Yes. All right, we're going to do public comments. So,
Like 1 second to get my computer.
okay. Uh-oh.
you see recuse?
Okay. Anyway, we're going to have public comment. Everybody is going to get 2 minutes. Patrick has got a timer, and he's going to be timing you, so
Yeah,
watch.
when you get to about 30 seconds, I'll let you know that you got 30 seconds left so that we can wrap it up at 2. There's a lot of people, so we need to kind of try to stick to 2 minutes, everyone. Cool.
Are we doing, you said you want to take some?
No, there's,
we're
we
just
just,
gonna go for it?
everybody's going to have 2 minutes, and let's just do it.
And call from here. Yeah, it's okay with you. Okay. So Wayne from Encino, please.
Wayne? Right here, up in front. Yeah, give her those, put those on the bottom.
Did you already do general on the regular meeting?
Yes.
Yep,
You
your 2
missed-
minutes has started, just to let you know.
Oh, that's good. All right, so as you saw the presentation, it's clear cut. The project doesn't suck. It totally sucks. She knocked it out of the ballpark. But the problem is that the owners of our city want it built. It's a big club. None of us are a member of it, though. So the little people have to turn it down. Now, you got emails from the city attorney threatening everybody with lawsuits and suspensions and conflicts of interest. They're moving this meeting into this unusual building. You got to show ID to get into the building. They got security up the ass in the garage, all in violation of the Ralph M. Brown Act under 54950.1. So the ones that made it here, there'll be a lot more people here. So they never have metal detectors here. I've been here before. What is all this metal detectors and security? This trespass sign. We have to be embarrassed and shamed because we speak at a public meeting, because the owners don't want us to speak. The owners got Donald Trump as their president, and the owners want to build the bridge. And they want to have their filthy little SUVs in their filthy little garage. And you know what it is? That school educated Eric Garcetti, the worst mayor ever. The guy went to school and didn't learn shit when he was there. So that right there, I make a motion to shut that school down. I make a motion to sue them for ever putting Eric Garcetti with a diploma. He's not a Rhodes Scholar, he's a Rhodes idiot. No on the project.
Thank you, Wayne, thank you. Lori Cohen? Laurel Cohen?
Hi, Lori Cohn, resident, stakeholder, homeowner. I just can't understand, what?
Move this closer.
Oh, okay. I can't understand how a project like this could have gotten this far. This is for 900 entitled students. There are other private schools where you are not allowed to drive to school. They have transportation worked out, and that's what should be used here. This is no benefit to the public. This is solely for those 900 students, with the rest of the city inconvenienced for 3 years. And I hopefully you will vote toward a 25-year moratorium on building on either side of Coldwater, no vacation of the public airspace for a private bridge over Coldwater, no field lights on either their existing field or their new proposed practice field. Thank you.
Thank you. Edward Lozzi? Edward Lozzi? There you go.
Hello, for the record, Edward Lozzi, property owner, resident, Studio City, Mulholland Drive. We're all here because we're really preparing for the big meeting next week, which really means something. I know that we appreciate you guys here on the Neighborhood Council, and what you've done in getting our message across. Bottom line is, I'm a property owner. My realtor has met with me twice. If you have property in any of the 3 canyons or Mulholland Drive, forget about the real estate values you think you're going to have because of this project. Secondly, Harvard Westlake has shut down their community relations altogether. They will not allow anybody to come and jog on their track anymore after 35 years of doing so. I'm living proof. They keep me out. I've never demonstrated against them. I've never done anything against them. Security guards just say, the party's over, pal. There's no more using the facilities whatsoever. This is community relations. This is supposed to be public relations, which is the business that I'm in. Those 2 things don't mean much, but my final question and statement is, unless I've missed it, was Councilman Krikorian supposed to tell us whether he is for the project or against it after the environmental report came out? Yes or no? Yes. Okay. Has he done so? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Carolyn Carson.
My husband and I are residents on Oeste Avenue, which opens from Coldwater Canyon onto Avenida del Sol. Avenida del Sol is the only access to all the hillside properties in that area. We are truly held captive for a good part of every day because of the traffic situation coming up and down Coldwater mornings or later in the day. Today, my husband and I tried to leave at 1 o'clock and we had to wait for lots of oncoming traffic coming downhill. There is no stoplight at this T interchange. Traffic is coming around at a very blind curve. Cars are accelerating to go uphill toward Beverly Hills, or they are accelerating coming downhill from Beverly Hills. And the left turn lane onto Avenida del Sol is not very long. It can't be because of the curve. And we always sit there just waiting to be struck from behind because it is such a dangerous place. It seems to me that not only is this not going to improve traffic flow, it seems to me it would be even worse. And the fact that there's going to be a problem during construction of such a project for 3 years is nothing compared to the traffic problems that are going to be exacerbated after this project would be finished. All these turns left across morning traffic coming uphill is just going to hold up everybody. As it is now, it backs up to Moore Park a good deal of the time. My other major concern is that, and that's a safety issue for all of us, a huge safety issue. My other concern also is the real estate value. Those of us who have properties in that area are going to be very negatively affected. Our property happens to be a fairly sizable piece. It was one of the original pieces of land. I think there were about 10 acres at one time. We have 1 acre and a third. We're not allowed to build anything as an auxiliary structure on our property.
Can you wrap it up?
But apparently,
please,
that doesn't matter when somebody has a large piece that they want to develop for this sort of a purpose.
Thank you.
Same rules don't seem to apply.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Can we hold our applause, please?
Al Fisk.
How you doing? Okay, so all I want to say is when they showed the retaining wall, the 2 homes above the retaining wall, one of them is mine. Okay, so that's my backyard. For real. Everybody says, don't talk about, well, not in my backyard. That's literally my backyard, all right? I'm going to lose half the value of my house. Easy. I'm going to also have people playing whatever they're going to do there. Why would you allow them to even do anything on that field past like 4 o'clock in the afternoon? What do they need lights for? What do they need a 30-foot? I won't see that, right? I don't know what to tell you. The way they should put all the people critically affected in one room and talk to us like human beings. What they're doing is they're just stale-facing us and pushing us around. They're trying to mug us out, basically. They're punking us out. And all you cats are letting them do it. All right? You should demand they sit in a room with the homeowners and we talk about the project for real, with people that can give us answers. Not let them use you guys as a barrier to keep rolling this shit year after year after year. Because I got a stomach ache from 3 years of worrying about my house. All right? This is bullshit. This thing's rigged and you know it. I'm the one that come up with the story poles. They do it in Malibu. Where'd they come up? They had Chuck E. Cheese down there the other day with 8 balloons. All right, come on. I'm a builder. A Super 10 holds 10 to 12 yards. Divide that into 136,000 yards. How many trucks are going to come down there? And they won't max them. A Super 10 won't put 12 in there because of the scales.
Thank you.
I'm pissed.
Thank you.
Somebody either got to write a check to all of us or they'll shut it down, one or the other.
Thank you.
Alan Diamond?
Okay, good evening. I'm the president of the Studio City Residents Association. Represents over 2,000 stakeholders. I agree the campus could do with some updating, but the proposal presented here tonight far exceeds what Harvard Westlake needs as based on the number of its students. Harvard Westlake would like this board to support certification of the final environmental impact report, adopt a mitigation monitoring program, and support the vesting conditional use for a private school in a residential zone. All this could be part of the hearing officer report that will be issued after the August 8th public hearing. Harvard Westlake requests a reduction in setbacks from the canyon, increased height up to 90 feet from the allowable 30 feet. They want to export 2,500 cubic yards of the hillside when presently they can only in hillsides export 1,000. The applicant is not expanding the campus, but is building a parking structure on land zoned as residential. The project is grossly out of scale with the surrounding areas and disregards any sensitive planning. Its impact on the immediate environment and surrounding neighborhoods is incalculable, as it is to others who traverse the canyon on a daily basis. The FEIR, which is before you, that you've all read, I'm sure, presents 5 proposals which you may have to consider, one of which is no project. This board may support any one of the proposals, or they can flat out state that the scope and scale of this project's impact just cannot be tolerated for many reasons and choose to support a no project. If Harvard Westlake, if they wanted, could be totally open about their 10-year plan and long-term objectives for the school. The SCRA cannot believe a parking structure of this size and cost was not the result of an analysis with a goal in mind. They must have been thinking something to put that much money into this structure. In closing, on behalf of the members of the SCRA and adopting the objections of the other parties to which SCRA concurs, SCRA is unable and will not give its support to this project. Thank you.
Thank you.
Beth Diamond.
Beth Diamond.
Good evening. My name is Beth Diamond. I live at 11615 Canton Place, and I'm not a NIMBY. I live off of Laurel Canyon, and I very seldom use Coldwater Canyon. But I attended the balloon height display with an open mind. What I saw was the enormous size of this parking structure and the impact on the canyon road with no setbacks and the creation of a commuter nightmare. Seeing and walking the length of the project showed how huge this structure is. It is many times larger than I envisioned, built on a curve that would devastate the canyon, the residents, and the wildlife. This is not a school. It is a parking garage. It is in the wrong place. Harvard Westlake needs to show that they are an honest broker, start over with integrity, and work with the Studio City community to make this school a centerpiece of Studio City. Harvard Westlake students are leaders in our community and deserve better from the architects and engineers who designed this disaster and the attorneys who continue to shove it down our throats. I encourage this board to object to all 7 of the requested area height modifications as stated in the hearing notice. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm sorry. Sue Ellen Wagner.
Hello. It's hard to control my outrage and kind of just hone in on a couple of things in 2 minutes, but I just want to start off by making sure everybody knows that Harvard Westlake does not have a conditional use permit at this time. Up until now, they've just been making their own rules. So with this project, they will be required to have a CUP that will govern the site and the operations of the entire school. And I would hate to see them, Harvard Westlake, be legitimized by earning a CUP for building this monstrosity. The FEIR acknowledges a couple of impacts, biological impacts. The bio, you know about, the creatures and the trees, irreplaceable oak woodland. They acknowledge a noise impact. They do not acknowledge an air quality impact. There is a great impact. They do not acknowledge a safety impact. There is a significant negative impact. They do not acknowledge traffic impact. There is a large and significant traffic impact that will ripple throughout the area. I live adjacent to Laurel Canyon. In a Laurel Canyon neighborhood, as I'm sure a lot of you do, life will be really bad for all of us. And why? So kids can have their own parking spaces. There is no other reason. The land use and the aesthetics, FEIR found no problem. That's just a joke, as big a joke as the little balloons that replaced story poles, which could have been done. And, I think Harvard Westlake's behavior has been pretty bad. And the mitigations are insufficient all the way across the board. Even where they have found impacts, they're insufficient. So please just say no.
Thank you.
Alex is Becky, speaking as a stakeholder.
Hello. I had a chance to read the final EIR, and I noticed that there were several alternatives that were offered. And basically, one of the alternatives was to actually build this, the spaces that were needed on the actual existing campus. The problem was it didn't achieve the school's objective, their following objective, which is not like something that is really needed, like drainage or better water. They need a practice field. So basically, they're proposing building this huge monstrosity and disrupting the lives of commuters and the community it shares with, believe it or not, for a practice field. I don't think it's fair to ask the community to suffer the destruction of a hillside and their community for just basically a practice field. They currently have a field that they underuse. I live close by the property. I see their field being used by outside leagues every weekend during the school year. So what I'm saying is that basically, I would ask if they need another field, basically they need to probably find another place to create this wondrous place that they have envisioned as they've accumulated all this land for the last 17 years in hopes of building this disaster. So what I'd like to do is just ask the school to actually keep kids safe, leave them on your campus, because if you're going to just build a practice field and create a bridge and a huge parking garage just to achieve that one goal, I'm asking the board to urge the school to go back to the drawing board, bring back the proposal that's consistent with the canyon rather than an industrial park, and maybe propose an admin building or whatever with a little footprint, go up that little trail they own and put a little enclosed parking lot. But basically, they can always sell their partials as well. I'm sure they'll profit handsomely from them now, and so everyone's gonna win. Anyways, thank you, and I will hope you will squelch this insane proposal that needs to be nipped at the bud now. Thank you.
Thank you.
Jeff Jacobs.
Hello, I'm Jeff Jacobs, a stakeholder. Alex and Sue Ellen and other speakers have already indicated that Harvard Westlake really does not need an increase in parking. During a recent Studio City Neighborhood Council meeting, they were asked how many cars actually park in the neighborhood. At one point they said 28, not at the meeting, but previously they said 28. One time Rick Cummins said 100, they don't know. And the Studio City Neighborhood Council Transportation, they asked them, well, how come you don't know? Do the cars have stickers on them to indicate that they're Harvard Westlake students, or do they have license plates on their cars? Well, they don't have stickers on their cars because they're just too easily removed. They haven't done anything regarding the license plates. They didn't respond to that. There were a couple of alternatives. One of them was already mentioned, do some parking on some of the lots that they have on the east side. When I listened to the YouTube presentation, I think that Edgar stated that they can't do it because it's too expensive. You could double check with him. I think I heard that in there towards the end. At one time they said it wasn't feasible because of the water table down there. So go back and listen to that and see if he said at the end there, it's too expensive. A couple of other things that should be noted. Terrible, in the new FEIR, all of a sudden there's like a 20-page dissertation on cancer risks. And I am a cancer survivor. If you go ahead and read some of the information on there, it indicates that some of the existing sensitive receptors are the preschool, which is 500 feet away, residential single-family homes on Hacienda about 300 feet away, and residents on single-family residents on Van Noort and Galewood about 100 feet or 200 feet away. So what does that mean for all the other people that are 500 feet away? Does that mean they're in good shape? How much time do I have? I just have a little bit more.
Just wrap it up, yeah.
Okay. On page 12 of the report, it talks about the age groups that are affected. This is very interesting because women in their third trimester should not move into the neighborhood. Children under 2 and about 16, they shouldn't move in the neighborhood. And people who are 70 years old, like me, shouldn't move in a neighborhood. They didn't speak about the disabled, the infirmed, or previous cancer survivors, like me. I'm not a chemist, a biologist, or scientist, but any potential increase in cancer risk is a concern to me and my family, and should be a concern of all of you here. I believe that the Los Angeles City should get an independent report made regarding the health risk assessment for the neighborhoods in general. And finally, I want to say is the way I look at this, and as Alex also said, is this battle really needed for a practice field? Thank you.
Thank you.
Walda Rocos? Wilda Rocos?
We get one.
I'm a former board member of Save Coldwater Canyon. I had to resign recently for health reasons, but my passion is still with the problems that this project is going to create. Everybody's done a great job tonight of addressing most of the issues. The one where
maybe I can say more than others, is I'm a very well-respected wildlife filmmaker, having worked with National Geographic and Discovery for over 20 years. I know what's going to happen to the wildlife if they are uprooted. They will die. Animals do not like having their homes destroyed. They don't say, okay, this is okay, I'll just move over here and be fine. They have their food trails, they have their game trails. They do not. I mean, I've worked on countless programs where if we move the animal, we make sure that it goes back to where we got it from to film it. And I don't see anything coming out of Harvard Westlake that has any conservation or any thought of what this is going to do. One thing I'll tell you is you're going to have more coyotes in your backyard, and there might be some ugly little encounters if this garage is built with rattlesnakes. I think everybody's covered everything else. That's it for me.
Thank you.
Dan Eaton.
Try again.
Dan Eaton.
Okay.
Linnell Eaton, also gone? Okay, sorry, thank you. Victoria Schulen.
I live in the neighborhood behind the Sportsman's Lodge, and I can tell you traffic on Coldwater is already unbearable. The thought of all of those trucks added to it is enough to make me go completely crazy. One of my big concerns is where are they going to stage all the trucks that are waiting to go up the hill? And who's going to benefit from all that exhaust? I can't afford to benefit from it, and I'm pretty sure there are a lot of other people my age who won't want that. I would like to see them all parked on Colfax and Tahunga, to be honest with you. I've talked about this with people all over this valley, and to a person they have all freaked out when I told them and started screaming about the traffic that they're going to endure on all the other canyons and the freeway because of this. There is no one happy about this in the valley. There's only a couple people who are happy about this. I'm asking you to please protect all of our constituents and vote no on this horrible project. Thank you.
Thank you.
Michael Schweitzer. Michael Schweitzer. Switzer? Sorry.
Hello, I'm Michael Switzer. I am a 28-year resident on Avenida del Sol, right off of Coldwater Canyon. I want to tell you about a couple of observations just this last week. Last Thursday, there was a fender bender just south on the east side of Coldwater Canyon, just south of the Harvard Westlake entrance. It wasn't a major accident. In fact, it was pretty minor. Somebody ran into the back of somebody else, and the traffic going north was not really affected. The traffic going south was backed up all the way to Sarah. One block south of the freeway, the 101. That was just one little fender bender, and it was pulled off to the side of the road. That's one. That was last Thursday. I was also there for the balloon event. At one point, somebody pulled up and stuck a sign, a Save Coldwater Canyon sign. They were not with Coldwater Canyon people. Right across the street from the entrance. A Harvard Westlake guard, someone who's supposed to protect the students, ran across the street, jaywalking, to get that sign, and ran across the street back jaywalking. I don't think the guards are going to be very successful in keeping those kids from crossing the street. Anyway, that's
Nina Kellogg.
I've lived for 32 years right by the parking lot of St. Michael's. Nobody stops basically for the stop signs of Avenida del Sol or Alta Mesa Drive. I used to think my job was to sit on my front porch and yell at people, but it wasn't working, and I got bored. I think with all the things said, the one I'm waiting for is the first death. The death that's going to happen when you have every single day that many people parking and needing to cross Coldwater Canyon to get to the school on the other side. For all of us who drive this street, we know that something's going to happen. I pray every day when I make the left-hand turn into Avenida del Sol that somebody won't hit me from the back. But when you have that many young kids on the other side of the street needing to get to school on time, somebody is going to get hit and probably or possibly and hopefully not get killed.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Arden Rinu.
Hi, my name is Arden Rinu. I've lived also in the area for 30 years. The Harvard Westlake garage is a bad idea. It's bad for all the people that live in the area, and I also believe that it's very bad for the school itself. Right now, 5 years ago, the Sepulveda Pass, they built an 84-foot retaining wall, the highest retaining wall in all of Los Angeles. 2 years after it was built, and that cost of the whole project was $2 billion, it started to fail. The county went to Sacramento and they said, we need more money to fix this. Somebody's going to get killed. The state said, we've got lots of bridges and roads that need to be fixed. You're not getting any money from the state. Now these people, that's an 84-foot wall, are proposing building an 82-foot wall. Well, if we have a 94 earthquake, which isn't a major one, and everything happens and all the people that'll be isolated and injured because of this 82-foot wall will have a lot of trouble. And I would think the lawsuits wouldn't allow the school to survive because I don't think anyone's going to give them any sort of structure. But let's go a little bit further. There's a lot of problems here, but the question we have to ask, this is a garage. Why do the students need a garage? Now let me tell you the dirty little secret of why the students need a garage. Because they have a drinking and drug problem, okay? The students do not like to eat lunch at school. And in fact, I was once invited over to see the lunch, and it was terrific. But you're not allowed to drink beer at the lunch. And so consequently, these students need cars so they can go out and litter our streets. I have picked up so many beer bottles and so many unmentionable things from big SUVs. And of course, they do stop along tackle places and things like that, and they leave their litter on our street. I am continually picking this stuff up. And it is no surprise that within the last 6 years, as all this has gone up, that now in our neighborhood, we now have armed patrols on the street. And why do the people pay for armed controls? Because they don't want to put up with the belligerents, if you go out to 4 students in a car and say, guys, could you move?
Thank you.
Anyway.
John Worston.
They don't need a garage.
Thank you. I'm John Borston. I'm a close neighbor of Harvard Westlake and also a proud Harvard Westlake parent. I've sent 2 children there. That's 12 years tuition. But they were well educated and they made friends for life. And I would argue that it's probably the best school in Los Angeles. But I do have issues with this project. By its own admission, the EIR says it's not intended or required to provide justification or demonstrate the need for a particular project. But I'd like to talk about that need because as I see it, this whole project is a solution in search of a problem. The project objectives are said to be safety, parking, and a practice field. In my experience as a Harvard Westlake parent and a neighbor of 30 years, I'd like to address that. First, the playing field. Well, my son played baseball, and he was bused to a field, and that worked just fine. In terms of neighborhood parking, as a 30-year resident, I have to say that this has never been a big issue. The EIR says there are 72 spots short. Well, we can handle that. A few times a year, there are lots of cars for big events. We've handled that well, and Harvard Westlake handles that very well. There will be complaints. It isn't perfect, but it works fine. In terms of safety, as Susan pointed out, in my 30 years here, this has never been an issue. I didn't worry about it for my children, and I don't now. Safety is not a problem for one reason. Everything and everyone stays on one side of Coldwater. Now they're going to create a strong incentive for teenagers to run back and forth across Coldwater. You can have all the guards and overpasses you want, but I was a teenager. Okay?
Thank you.
Can I just finish up here briefly?
Real quick.
So why go to this trouble and expense? Okay, I'll be brief here. But so why go to this trouble and expense? To what end? $30 million for what? To clear land now spent on parking on the campus side of Coldwater. Why does this matter? Well, they want it because they want to build on that land. Perhaps they want increased school size. Do we want that? It's already one of the 10 biggest private schools in California. If not, build what? When this project began, there was talk of an arts center. That would be a magnet for new activity, and it would require plenty of parking, wouldn't it? But now Harvard Westlake says it's not planning new buildings. Will they commit to a 25-year moratorium on new buildings? If so, why build all that parking? Sometimes being the best means you get a little arrogant and you forget the costs to others of your march to perfection. I love Harvard Westlake, but it is not the gateway to Studio City. Thank you.
Rita, hold on one second. Hold on. Your name is, what's your name?
Parker Andrews.
Parker Andrews.
Got it. This is next. Okay.
Thank you.
Sherry Reinu.
Hi, I live on Galewood. I just going to run off of several things. First of all, it's obvious we're preaching to the choir here tonight, and so the people that really need to hear this are not here, and that's very aggravating. Well, there's just a few of you, and we know exactly where you stand. So, quickly, okay, in terms of the OSHA, Cal OSHA, I did some research. The people that are going to be in those trucks have to have masks, and they are all controlled. They're, for the dust. Now, that's nice for them, but what about the neighbors? They're not going to have any protection. But the truck drivers have to. You can look it up. Cal OSHA has all kinds of rules. The parents have their kids there for 3 years. That's it. Come and gone. What about the rest of us? We're living there for our lifetimes. These are our, for many of us, it's our biggest investment in our lives. And it's in absolute danger. But they're going to be coming and going 3 years, so they don't care. Okay? This is obviously a situation where the few is in control and the many are being stomped on. I would just say that I'm a member of Indivisible and a huddle group. They're all over the 7,000 in the country now. And we've got to do some media. We've got to do what they're doing, which is go to Krikorian's office, organize, rattle the cages, go down to City Hall. We're just here in our little room here, and we're not getting that message out to the people who are going to be coming across Coldwater for 3 years, and we don't know what kind of conditions they're going to be in. What if we do have that rain again? Are the 3 years really going to cover that?
Thank you.
We have no
Janie
idea.
Milne.
Hi there. I'm Janine Milne. I'm a longtime resident of Studio City. Coldwater Canyon is a 2-lane designated California scenic highway. And the land, the site land, it is zoned R1, as was mentioned in the video, which is low use residential. And 3/4 of the site is designated desirable open space land. It's my understanding that in order to build this project, obviously the zoning does not match the massive demolition and development. I honestly can't imagine what's in Harvard Westlake's mind. I used to really look up to this school, and I feel like when I look at what is proposed to be done, that it's like Appalachia coal country and they're blowing up a mountain. And that just doesn't seem right for a progressive school in 2017. But I think what's really imperative, and I mentioned this to another neighborhood council, it was not this board, it was another one, that it's my understanding that this zoning can only be changed if it is deemed to be of benefit to the community. And there's not one benefit to the community that I've heard of for the last 3 years since I last mentioned this in front of a different board, or mainly different board. And except the community is supposed to bear a tremendous burden that in fact is only beneficial to a private entity on a 2-lane public California designated scenic highway.
Thank you.
Lenny Borstein. Lenny Bornstein.
Thank you for holding this meeting. Thank you, Harvard Westlake, for your presentation, and thank you, Save Coldwater Canyon, for yours. My name is Lenny Borston, and as John mentioned earlier, our 2 children are proud graduates of Harvard Westlake. They could not have had a better education, and I thank Harvard Westlake for that. We live just south of Harvard Westlake on the east side of Coldwater. A response to commenters in the FEIR who said that the project is out of scale with neighborhood were countered in the report that the size of 2 buildings on Harvard Westlake's campus east of Coldwater are as high as the proposed structure, and that some houses were that high as well. I have 2 responses. Seaver and Charles are each set well back on the Harvard Westlake campus and also well screened from the street. And no house in the neighborhood I'm aware of is the size of a football field. I hold to my position that the proposed structure, a parking lot worthy of an airport, is not in scale with the neighborhood, and a bridge over Coldwater turns the canyon into yet more like an airport environment. And as for the parking need, the math is kind of amazing, and it was referred to earlier. Currently, there are 578 spaces on the current campus, so there are 87 spaces short, plus this doesn't account for parent and other guest visits on the campus that they need, so let's say there are 100 short. To make up for the short spaces now, Harvard Westlake, as mentioned in the report, is having 104 off-site spaces, including 35 along Coldwater that are now rarely used, plus 40 of St. Michael's parking, plus 28 spaces in the neighborhood. I really do not get that to fix the neighborhood use of 28 spaces, that a 750-car garage needs to be built. The project itself causes the existing available parking to be reduced to 335 spaces. The construction creates a need that would not be there without it.
Thank
And
you.
I'll be short.
Short.
Let's be futurists for a moment. Will our students really be driving themselves everywhere after the next decade? Or will there be a combination of self-driven vehicles or Uber Lyft type disruptive innovations? Would that diminish the need for parking spaces? And I would again say that the Harvard Westlake buses are very safe, parking where they are, and I'll leave it at that, only to say Harvard Westlake is a terrific school, but the decision makers of the city, of this council, and of Harvard Westlake, please consider the cost to the neighborhood.
Marshall Long.
Somebody on the volume on this, you can take it down a little. My name is Marshall Long. I live in Sherman Oaks, and I wanted to take a little time, and I appreciate the time that you're allowing us to have to talk to this issue. First of all, on traffic, the post-construction traffic with the proposed parking structure will be significantly improved, particularly in the morning peak hours when traffic is most influenced by the arrival of students. The addition of 3 dedicated turn lanes and an extra through lane on Coldwater increases the AM or decreases the AM peak hour impact from a proposed level of service of D to a proposed level of service of A. This is a public benefit. The PM traffic is not significantly influenced by the project, yielding only a small decrease, I repeat, decrease in traffic. This is because the PM traffic is dominated by the existing and projected traffic with or without the project. Next point, one of the main purposes of the proposed project is to increase safety for students utilizing the parking structure. The fact is, a number of students have been killed or maimed while crossing streets in the immediate area of their schools, and that's an important fact to remember. Next, the pedestrian bridge, which is proposed as part of the safety features, is very similar to the one the city built for itself, connecting City Hall to the adjacent parking structure for its guests and employees. I have more to say, but I've left a printed version of this with the other comments. Thank you.
Thank you.
Please hold the applause.
Denise Elliott, or Dennis Elliott?
Denise.
Denise, is it Denise? Thank you.
I don't see her.
Denise Elliott?
Okay.
All right. Thank you. Judy Price.
Hey.
Hello, my name is Judy Price. I have no position on the Harvard Westlake project and don't know anyone associated with it. I decided to come tonight, however, when I was personally libeled by President Welvang in an email when I was asking about process. Individual board members is Becky, Berlin, McKay, Previn, Welch, and Welvang, as members of the Save Coldwater Canyon organization, should have consulted.
This is supposed to be on the Coldwater Canyon. This is supposed to be comments on Coldwater Canyon. That was a public
I am
comment.
making comments about it. This is about the project. should have consulted with the city
public-
attorney
that's public
regarding a
comment.
possible conflict of interest
I'm
and
sorry, but it's public
recusal
comment.
on the Harvard Westlake proposed development. There was no place to put public comment time
Okay.
on the
You can go.
comment
You can go.
thing. Isvecki also lives within 500 feet of the development site and is an officer on the board. You should not try to shut me down.
Why not?
Because this is relevant.
Guys, she has
And
1
it's an
minute left.
officer
Let's let her
on the
speak,
board.
please.
I am a stakeholder in Studio City too. Is an officer on the board of Save Coldwater. McKay is also an officer. All of the aforementioned listed membership in Save Coldwater on their 2016 Studio City Neighborhood Council election registration forms in order to vote for the community service organization seat for which McKay was elected. This clearly indicates a bias against the Harvard Westlake development. It is incumbent on all who choose to serve on a neighborhood council to know the laws and governing codes. Blaming the city attorney is counterproductive. Recusal is not their policy, but government code, section 1090.
Okay.
And no one's First Amendment rights are being threatened. Others got more time, I'm going to take it. You interrupted me. And no one's First Amendment rights are being threatened.
Your time
even
is up.
in recusal. Recused individuals
Your
still have the
time is up.
right to make public comment.
Your time is up.
But not while occupying their seats at the board.
Thank you, Ms. Price. Thank
Nor
you.
while the
Can we-
board is
Your time is
discussing
up.
or
Thank
voting
you.
on the issue.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You should
Lori
not
Cohen?
try to shut a stakeholder down
Excuse me.
when making comment on the
Excuse
project.
me.
Okay,
Your
who's
time.
next? Can we call the next speaker,
I
please?
did.
Yeah.
Lori Cohen?
Lori Cohen, please.
No.
Okay, she's already spoke.
She already
Did
spoke?
she speak? Okay. Maybe I was out of the room.
Oh, yeah,
when she
that could
spoke?
be.
Okay. Wayne from Encino already
He
spoke. Okay, then the last person to speak is Edgar. I have another. You're done. Okay,
Nope.
thank you. Then
All right.
that's it. Thank
Did anyone fill out a public comment card that has not been called? No, Wayne. No,
No.
Wayne.
Wayne spoke already.
Yeah,
Okay.
Wayne, you spoke already,
He was
sir.
the first one I called. I
Yes.
remember that.
Yeah. Okay.
Sorry. Okay. So I'm going to move to the more presentation.
We're going to have a presentation by the our government affairs and I thought land use.
Land use just escaped.
You ran away?
Rita, should we move down there? Okay.
Okay. All of us back here.
Thank you. Okay, thank you. I hope that people are able to read what is in front of them. The purpose of the presentation tonight, sorry, okay. Barry? No, okay. Peter, help. It's on, okay, thank you. All right. All right, do my best. The purpose of the presentation tonight is to address the two comment letters let me start again. All right, two comment letters were previously submitted by the SCNC with respect to the DEIR and then one with respect to the RDEIR. And both of those comment letters were responded to in this EIR, this final EIR. And so what the purpose of tonight is to simply, although not everything that we said in those comment letters is necessarily applicable to the CEQA process or would be determinative of the CEQA process. In both of those presentations, the SCNC made an attempt to incorporate all comments of all stakeholders that we received. So our goal was to present the information that we received from the community and to express the desires of the community, even if it wasn't specifically CEQA relevant. And this now will be coming before a hearing officer of the planning department. And then that hearing officer will prepare a report. So what we want to do at this juncture is to review the comments that we made in that letter and how those comments were responded to in the EIR, and then to just indicate how our community, try to convey how the community, how they've either responded to them appropriately or how the community still feels there may be concerns about this. So just wanted to give you that as background. So the first section that we addressed on the EIR relates to the comment letter that we issued in December of 13. And so the first couple of comments there had no specific need for them to respond because they were introductory. We then go into the areas where we had specific concerns that were addressed by the stakeholders, the first one being that the project would not result in an improved traffic flow, and the response is that the project would not result in a significant adverse impact during construction. But that Harvard Westlake, okay, please let's just be respectful and of everyone's opinions. You know, we're trying to get the community's opinions across here, and to give we have to just address what the response is. So Harvard Westlake is however going to make several traffic improvements, including an addition of a southbound lane, and provide new traffic signal equipment. Oh shoot, I'm sorry, my finger just went crazy. Okay, hold on. All right, sorry. All right, and the project would also relocate school bus loading and unloading from Coldwater Canyon Avenue to within the Harvard Westlake campus. And then they address the fact that the left turn lanes would be sufficient. Our comment with respect to their response is that the proposed project involves the removal of 135 cubic yards of soil, and that number moves back and forth between 135 and 137 in different places. So, despite the proposed traffic improvements proposed above, based on the number of truck trips that will be required during the excavation phase alone, it's not realistic to say that the proposed project would not result in a significant adverse impact during construction. We believe there will be a significant adverse traffic impact through the majority of the construction period, which is estimated to be about 30 months. The SCC received concern from stakeholders relating to the construction of a privately owned pedestrian bridge across one of the major arteries between the San Fernando Valley and the city side of the hill, and that it's not safe in light of the geology of the area. The response indicates that the conclusion reached is that the project, including the pedestrian bridge, does not represent a safety hazard to the project's occupants, the surrounding community or motorists along Coldwater Canyon Avenue, and that most of the pedestrian bridge will be located in an area while most of the pedestrian bridge will be located in an area of liquefaction, they'll drill in such a way that that would not be a significant problem. Okay, so going on, where I have in black, I don't know, you may not pick it up on the screen, where I have it in black bold, that's a comment from the responder. So they also addressed soil nailing and retaining wall design was independently peer reviewed, and the conclusion was reached that DRS preliminary soil nail design considers appropriate for the geological factors for the development site, and it meets the building codes, and it correctly concludes that the project can be completed and maintained safely. So that was their response to that. The SCNC had a concern that the bridge would not be owned by a public agency and subject to regular inspections. And the response is that given the non-permeable nature of the bedrock on the development site, groundwater will remain perched in the soil, and layers of alluvium and colluvium above the bedrock will not subject the pedestrian bridge to potential effects of liquefaction. And further, that they've used a significantly greater load factor than required when designing the bridge, and that the bridge has actually been designed so that it's at a safety rating analogous to those of essential facilities such as hospitals, fire stations, police stations. And those types of structures are intended to be occupied safely and immediately following a natural disaster or earthquake without significant structural damage or loss of integrity. They've also have regulatory compliance measures have been modified to require that Harvard Westlake will work with the appropriate City of Los Angeles agencies prior to the issuance of the building permits to develop monitoring, response, and recovery plans for the pedestrian bridge, and structural inspections of the pedestrian bridge will be on an annual basis. So the SCNC acknowledges the applicant's response and agrees, and the fact that they agreed to have inspections of the pedestrian bridge on an annual basis, which is actually something that we were asking them to do if the project were to go ahead. Let me just go back. I think I've missed a piece here. Sorry. The comment was, we received concern about the construction of 87-foot high retaining walls, which would be neither safe based on the geology of the area, compatible with the surrounding environment, or in compliance with the standards for retaining walls. And their response, in essence, was that the commenter's opinion that the proposed walls may not be compatible with the surrounding environment would be forwarded to the decision maker for further consideration in taking action on the project. But the SCNC and the community continue to have concerns that the size and location of the proposed project is not compatible with the surrounding environment. And we request that the decision makers take the proposed project's fundamental lack of compatibility with the surrounding environment into consideration before they would grant any variance or approve any construction on the project site. We also received specific concerns from the stakeholders related to the amount of grading, the need for this many parking spaces, and all of the items that are listed here. And their response was that the traffic studies prepared for the DEIR and the EIR, both of which were approved by the LADOT, concluded that the hauling and grading operations would not create a significant traffic impact. The supplemental traffic analysis, RDEIR Appendix G, and the peer review, RDEIR Appendix G.3, supported the determination that the hauling and grading operations would not create significant traffic impacts. Harvard Westlake has voluntarily agreed through RDEIR Project Design Features PDF TR-1 to limit the hauling hours and the volume of activities. And additionally, construction workers would be requested to arrive before 7 and remain on site during the workday and depart at 4. Our response to that is that the community strongly disagrees with the conclusion that the hauling and grading operations would not create a significant impact. Any additional traffic on this section of Coldwater Canyon Avenue will create a significant adverse impact on commuters in surrounding communities, including Valley Village and North Hollywood. We asked them for justification and support for the conclusion that the project is consistent with the applicable plans and policies and in keeping with the nature of the area as set forth in our community plan, and the zoning code, the baseline hillside ordinance, etc. And they referred us to section M5 there in their response, land use consistency. And they highlight the fact that schools in the city are typically located in residentially zoned parcels and approved with a conditional use permit. For example, the portion of the campus located on the east side of Coldwater Canyon Avenue is in the R1 and RE15 zones, and that discretionary approvals requested are are in accordance with the appropriate standards for heights and setbacks, and they're not indicative of whether the project is appropriate for the land use designation. They put in a considerable amount in their response here, and they said that the project's consistency with applicable land use plans and policies was thoroughly analyzed by reviewing the thresholds of significance established in Appendix G of the CEQA guidelines. And they also indicated that it was in compliance with the recently adopted mobility plan and zoning laws, et cetera. And that they appropriately conclude that the project would be consistent with the intent of the desirable open space special boundary as further discussed in this other mitigation response. And the project is consistent with the goals and policies of our plan. They said that the project would replace a substantially graded area with a parking structure with new landscaping and permeable areas, where approximately 64% of the development site would be improved with native and drought-tolerant landscaping, or be undisturbed except for the planting of new native vegetation and mitigation trees. Further, with the removal of the Harvard Westlake-owned residence on Potosi Avenue as part of the project, this area has increased approximately 67%. And the project would be somewhat separated from adjacent single-family homes because of the topography of the area and the landscaping. And the project would allow Harvard Westlake to provide adequate facility for its students at a site located across from the campus by promoting provision of adequate school facilities without the acquisition of new land, and that the project's consistent with other conditional uses for educational facilities in the immediate vicinity, and that the project supports the goals of the circulation system by providing safer and more secure parking and improving vehicular and pedestrian circulation on and off campus by better accommodating drop-off and pickup traffic currently taking place on Coldwater. And the determination of whether the project substantially conforms with the purpose, intent, and provision of the general plan, including our community plan, would be made by the City Planning Commission as required, and they give the code section for that. And our response is that although the schools in the city are typically located in residentially zoned parcels and approved with conditional use permit, the proposed project is not for the construction of a school. It's for the construction of a 750-space parking lot and an additional athletic field. It is not typical for schools in residential areas to have either a 750-space parking lot or a private pedestrian bridge. The applicant completely failed to address the question of whether the proposed project is consistent with the purpose, intent, and provision of our governing documents, or whether it's in keeping with the suburban nature of the area as set forth in our community plan. Instead, the applicant indicated that such determination is going to be made by the Planning Commission. Well, the community plan at 1-1.2 has a stated policy objective for protecting existing single-family residential neighborhoods from new and out-of-scale development, and at 1-1.3 to protect existing stable single-family low-density residential neighborhoods from encroachment by higher-density residential and other incompatible uses. So the SCNC continues to question how a 3-story parking structure with an athletic field on top of it is a use that's compatible with single-family residential uses and open space, which is part of the Santa Monica Mountains Conservancy that is adjacent to the proposed project site. A finding of no significant impacts and no required mitigation cannot be substantiated when the land use analysis fails to study the potential conflicts with our community plan. We then say that the community plan, we give our objective here, and we talk about the zoning and the scale of development again. And their conclusion is that the project is not inconsistent with the policy quoted in the comment. But we believe that due to the sheer mass of the proposed project and its placement on land adjacent to open space of the Santa Monica Mountains Conservancy land and a single-family residential area on a road that's designated as a scenic highway, we can't agree with the conclusion that the project would not be out of scale with the existing residential neighborhood due to the parking structure placement adjacent to the hillside. As the applicant acknowledged in its MR-6 on page 3-16, Coldwater Canyon Avenue is a designated scenic highway in the city of Los Angeles. And it's also noted in the mobility plan as, quote, winding across Mountain Road, providing access to the Mulholland Scenic Highway. And the northern boundary is located at Ventura Boulevard, the southern at the transition of the Beverly Hills in the distance 4 miles away. So they acknowledge that this is in the final EIR that this is a scenic highway as well. We then commented that the project site is at the southern entry to the San Fernando Valley, and the San Fernando Valley has long been recognized as the epitome of suburban life, and we asked them to document and demonstrate how a 3-story parking structure with an athletic field on top of it would be a use compatible with a single-family residential use and open space that's part of the next to the Conservancy. And we thought that a finding of no significant impacts and no required mitigation could not be substantiated. And their response is that an EIR is not required to analyze the potential effects of a project on plan goals, objectives, and policies that are not applicable to the project, or general city goals, objectives, or policies that can only be dealt with by the city and not an individual project. So this is one of those places where we recognize that this is not something required by CEQA, but we feel a need to communicate the feelings of our stakeholders to the decision makers. So that's why this is in here. So as indicated in our comment, in response to item C8 above, the applicant failed to address the question of whether it's consistent for the purpose and consistent with our community plan, and they indicated that the determination can only be dealt with by the city and not the individual project. But the stakeholders request that the city make its decision based upon our community plan stated objective of protecting existing single-family residential neighborhoods from new out-of-scale development and protect existing stable single-family residential neighborhoods from encroachment by higher density residential and other incompatible uses. A finding that the project will have no significant impacts or that it does not conflict with the community plan really can't be substantiated. We also had comments, other comments in the DEIR, and those related to comments submitted by our stakeholders, and that's what they're commenting here, is that there's nothing specific to address there. The summary of the project alternatives set forth in the DEIR doesn't include an alternative for a transportation management plan that includes a comprehensive carpooling plan utilizing satellite parking for both daily student parking and for major events similar to that utilized by Oakwood School. No serious project alternative was presented that would include the construction of one or more 2- or 3-story parking structures on the east side of the street that would allow for the school uses to remain within the existing campus. And they give us, they do take time and respond to that, and they cite MR7 as the parking alternative, as an alternative. And what it says is, in part, that since the purpose of the EIR's discussion of alternatives is to suggest ways the project objectives might be achieved at less environmental cost, project alternatives must be able to implement most of the project objectives. And in addition, the alternatives presented in the EIR must be potentially feasible, and that's in accordance with CEQA guidelines, and then they define feasible. And Chapter 5 of the DEIR and REIR present a reasonable range of alternatives, 5 alternatives. However, these alternatives either failed to meet the project's major objective for parking and practice field space, or failed to substantially lessen the project's significant construction noise and cumulative loss of oak-walnut, woodland impacts, or both. So our response to that is that the applicant has concluded that the proposed project alternatives presented either failed to meet the proposed project's major objectives or failed to substantially lessen the project's significant construction noise and cumulative loss of oak walnut woodland impacts. Although CEQA guidelines indicate that alternatives analyzed must be feasible and must be able to implement the most of the project alternatives, when the objectives of the proposed project result in a structure that's not compatible with the objectives of the community plan and the vision of the stakeholders for their community, the objectives of the community plan should be given greater weight in the analysis of the decision makers than the objectives of the applicant. Our next comment was that the DEIR indicates the impact of the project upon the visual character in the vicinity of the development site along Coldwater Canyon Avenue is a designated secondary scenic highway, and it would be less than significant. But we're concerned to understand how the construction of a 3-story parking structure, no matter how well designed, could have a less than significant impact upon the visual character of the area, which is currently undeveloped land zone for large lot residential uses. And their response, they refer us to the MR-4 regarding the findings that the project would have a less than significant impact on the aesthetics, including the visual character, and they refer us to another section regarding the current biological state of the development site and the school being located in a residentially zoned area. Well, the SCNC did not agree that the visual impact of the proposed project would be less than significant. The visual character of the area, which is currently undeveloped land adjacent to conservancy land, will be forever changed if a private pedestrian bridge is constructed across a scenic highway and a 3-story parking structure is constructed on that land. The comment, the DEIR states the project applicant shall retain a lighting design expert to implement the following protocol to ensure compliance with city lighting regulations, and that they would do it no later than 6 months after the certificate of occupancy. But we request that if the project were to go forward, that the light design would be expert would be obtained and render a report including an analysis of verifying compliance with all mitigation measures before the certificate of occupancy is granted. And in their response, we acknowledge that the applicant has made the revision that we requested there. In the DEIR, it indicates that there will be an 8-foot tall cable retention system to prevent rock fall, combined with a green chain link fence with an undulating top with adjacent appropriate native plantings constructed atop the retaining walls to further assist in screening the structure and light and glare from the practice field to adjacent residences. So the SCNC suggests the utilization of vines and other climbing plants to create a living green barrier to screen the structure and to mitigate the lighting impacts should the project go forward. And I believe in their response, we acknowledge that the applicant has made the revision that we requested should the project go forward. The DEIR indicated that the proposed project would not generate any new vehicle trips to the study area, and there would not be an associated increase in regional emissions, but presently there are 578 parking spaces available on the existing campus, and the project contemplates repurposing a lot of that, and it would ultimately result in 1,085 parking spaces, and we asked them to explain why, if the project was not going to generate new vehicle trips, there is a need for the construction of an additional 507 parking spaces. And we also asked them to provide the 10-year plan. So in their response, they give a detailed analysis of in MR1 of how their supply of parking is inadequate, and they then inform the city that it doesn't have a 10-year plan. So we note the applicant's response to the comment didn't really address the concern that we raised in the comment. The DEIR states that the project construction, including truck trips and operation, would not generate significant amounts of criteria pollutants such that they would impact regional air quality, and we asked them to explain how it's possible to grade and remove 135,000 cubic yards of earth with the number of truck trips required to accomplish that without having an impact on air quality. And they cite a number of their response is extensive, and they give a number of studies where they form the conclusion that the air quality will not be impacted. And they explain that with the incorporation of the revised mitigation measure MMAQ10 that requires the use of equipment meeting stringent emission standards and that would enforce a condition of as a condition of approval, results of the qualitative HRA indicate that the incremental cancer risk increase would be below the SCAQMD significance threshold, and therefore the project would result in a less than significant impact with regard to health risk. However, the SCNC acknowledges that the applicant has revised mitigation measure MMAQ-10 to reduce the incremental cancer risk below this significant threshold. However, the SCNC is concerned that this conclusion is based on the use of equipment meeting stringent emission standards and that would be enforced as a condition of approval. But the SCNC is concerned that monitoring the enforcement of that provision is not feasible, and we question how this provision could be monitored and enforced. The DEIR indicates the project would impact 1.05 acres of the oak walnut woodland, and that it would result in the removal of specific amounts of trees, which we've heard about already. And they have responded significantly to that. They ask us to note the changes to the acreage numbers of the impacted trees, and they give us the forest density information and the reason why they would not be able to, which was previously mentioned in another presentation about not being able to always use 15-gallon size trees as it may be pot bound. But the SCNC continues to be concerned that a continual cutting down of mature trees and replacing them with smaller bushes and trees is having an adverse impact on the environment and on the air quality in our community. So we continue to have that concern, as do our stakeholders. The DEIR indicates that the impact on flora and fauna from the project is going to be less than significant, but the commenter, they say that we reference attachments were submitted as separate comments, and that those were addressed separately, and so we refer them they refer us to that. And so the SCNC acknowledges the responses to the comments of the Santa Monica Conservancy and Save Coldwater Canyon. So what we're saying there is, that they have responded that we asked them to please look at the reports submitted by other community organizations. They respond that they did that, and we acknowledge that they did make responses to those comment letters. We say that the DEIR indicates the project would not expose people to substantial increased risk as a result of geological hazard, liquefaction, subsidence, expansive soils, and ZEMIS maps of the site where the bridge will be constructed indicate that the land on one side of Coldwater is liquefaction. And we think that the potentially significant difference in foundation properties could cause each side of the bridge to react differently during a moderate to large earthquake. They, in a letter report from their geologist, Kenneth Wilson, responded in detail to this comment. And they believe that the project has significantly mitigated any risk of that. We commented that the project would remove 135,000 cubic yards of earth, altering the topography in the vicinity of the site, and we asked them to explain the impact of the removal of that amount of earth on the stability of the surrounding hillside properties and the manner of construction of the retaining walls. And many of those concerns are set forth in a geological report that was included as Exhibit 5, and we asked them to address those concerns. And in their response, they said this comment addresses the geological technical concerns, raised by the geologist Kenneth Wilson in his report, and they refer us to the comments on that report. The DEIR indicates the project would be consistent with applicable plans and policies, but we asked them to provide additional study and analysis to document how the project may be in conflict with the community plan. And we considered a finding of no significant impacts and no required mitigation. We did not feel that that could really be substantiated when the land use analysis failed to study the potential conflicts with the community plan. And in their response, they refer us to MR5, which we've gone over previously, and the response to Commerce C9, et cetera. And they say, so we then, in response to that, as stated in the SCNC's comment letter in response at C10, the applicant indicated that compatibility with the community plan can only be dealt with by the city, and the stakeholders request that the city make its decision based on our community plan's stated policy objective of protecting existing single-family residential neighborhoods from new out-of-scale development and protect existing stable single-family low-density residential neighborhoods from encroachment. Because a finding that the project wouldn't have a significant impact or that it doesn't conflict with the community plan, we did not feel, could be sustained. In the next comment related to the figures showing differing mapping in the project areas, and we asked them to provide a new map showing should the project go forward exactly where the area of the project will remove dirt and construct the retaining walls and the parking structure, and specifically if it went forward, is any construction occurring south of Galewood Drive and Coldwater Canyon Avenue to the driveway of the parking structure. And the response to that was that the development site is located south of Galewood Drive, and excavation is proposed south of Galewood Drive to the parking structure entrance. There would be no connection from the development site to Galewood Drive, so we acknowledge the applicant's response regarding the location of the proposed excavation. There's been accumulation of additional surrounding properties purchased over the years by Harvard Westlake, and we asked for the intended use of the properties. And they responded that Harvard Westlake owns properties around the campus and the development site, and they're used for faculty and staff housing. So we acknowledge their response to our inquiry. The SCNC requests that should the project go forward, Harvard Westlake agree to compensate owners of the surrounding residences if there is damage to their homes or property caused by the project. And we explain how there's been damage to other projects in the area. And they have responded that our suggestion to undertake inspection of properties near the development site prior to the commencement of grading activity is noted, and that they would forward that to the decision makers. So we note that their response, and we request that should the proposed project be allowed to go forward in any form, that inspections of property near the development site prior to the commencement of grading activities should be required by the decision makers. The DEIR indicates that a noise disturbance coordinator should be established, and that disturbance coordinator would be responsible for responding to any local complaints. And they say that we note that the applicant didn't really respond to our comment. So we must have been asking for, because we asked that notices that are sent to residential units within 500 feet of the project site and all signs posted at the construction site list a telephone number for the disturbance coordinator. And we note that they didn't respond to that. So we're still requesting that all signs list a telephone number for the disturbance coordinator. And we repeat the request to the applicant to and request the decision makers require compliance with that request. Despite the establishment of a noise coordinator, we're concerned that the seriousness of the noise issue and its related repercussions aren't given sufficient consideration. Strokes and depression can and do occur with a constant dB above 6 for a prolonged period of time. The projections are that this dB level will be reached for a prolonged period of time, and it's noted that there will be postings of disturbance coordinators. We've asked for that. The DEIR does not, however, tell us where the postings would be, and should the project go forward, we request that the homes in the surrounding area and St. Michael's Church be sent a notification bulletin each time the dB level is expected to be a 6 above for an hour or more. And they say that they will basically forward our concerns to the decision maker. So we note that the applicant's going to forward the concerns to the decision maker, and we request that the decision maker require compliance with notification of St. Michael's Church and the surrounding homes. The next one, a comment related to bushes, shrubs, and trees that can be a buffer to noise if the project went forward, and we recommended that the entire area surrounding the parking structure be planted as densely as possible. We recommended that the retaining wall be shrouded with a net and some type of ivy or climbing vine planted at the bottom to ease the feedback of noise and so to soften the visual landscape. In the DEIR, we didn't see any planting between the parking structure and the retaining wall, and we explained why there was no foliage plan for that area. And they basically said that they would forward our comments related to landscaping as well. And then they reference other specific areas in the DEIR where they have provided mitigation measures. So we acknowledge their response regarding the mitigation measures requiring landscaping atop the walls, because they did incorporate that. During the excavation period, there would be 100 trips per day listed, and there was no noise determination cited, and that's important information. And they do explain where in the DEIR these levels were provided. Okay, my time is up. Okay. Okay, so we are, where am I? I'm on, let me just see if it tells me. Right, but I was just trying to see. So I'm on 21 to 67. I have a long way to go. So do you want me to stop? Okay. All right, so I'm going to, from this point, in the interest of time, I'm going to read just the blue comments that we made, and I hope that it makes sense in light of you not hearing the comment and response.
Why don't we just read what our motion would be?
Yeah, where is our motion?
Okay, well, our motion is tonight is not and was never intended to be an up or down vote on the project. What we're voting on as a board tonight is to approve the submission of our comments to the planning department to be considered at this hearing, so the community's input gets there and gets before them. Then what happens after that hearing is that the planning officer does a report, and then it's on that report will then go to the planning commission for their consideration. And what we will do is when that report is released, that's when we'll have a presentation on that report and make our decision as to how they've addressed what the planning report says, and then based on that, what they say in that report is when we will make a conclusion on the project. Okay. And based on that.
Needs to hear what you're doing, because they're going to do a motion. So everybody needs to hear your blue. Right. The board needs to hear your blue.
Okay, so
can we just is there a way to wrap it up?
I can just read the blue. We note the application.
We can post it on the website.
Right, but we're going to vote tonight to submit our comments.
But here's my question as a point of order.
So if the board doesn't hear our comments, how can they vote that we should submit our comments?
Rita, I have a question on point of order.
Yes.
Aren't we to take the recommendation of the committee rather than hearing all? In other words, we've talked about work done in committee and then presented in its entirety to the board, or its recommendation by the committee after the committee's done what you've done as an amazing piece of work.
Okay, well, our comments are what they are, and so we can just, our president, the president of the SCNC, is allowed to speak on behalf of the stakeholders. On behalf of the SCNC, and is the only one allowed to speak on behalf of the SCNC. So what we could do is have we could just authorize the president to issue a letter that would submit the comments, and then the president would make the decision that these comments were appropriate, that the committee came forth or not.
So all the comments that you are reading out loud for us all,
right,
in this document that you've been working on
twice. Right, because there's two different documents. We went through it one time, and then we went to it again, and now we've said, okay, so we asked these questions, now they've answered us, and we have reacted to how they've answered. And we still have concerns that we want to get before the planning hearing officer.
I understand. So my question only is, and it's amazing work. My question is, as the committee, as the land use committee who does its work off, away from the board and brings its recommendations to the board, my question to you is, at the end of this dissertation, is there a recommendation to be made by land use, or is this an educational?
The motion is to authorize submission of the comments to the hearing officer. Then once we get the planning report, that's when we know what planning is saying should be done. And at that point, when they say what they're going to accept and what they want to do, then that's when we have to come back as a board and say, we agree with this or we don't agree with that.
I understand, and I appreciate that. I'm asking, after reading everything that's been responded to by the, after you finish reading that, with all that material that's available to be seen, either in an email or presented on a website. So after you've done, are you simply informing the stakeholders tonight of the responses?
Yes, and the board. This is what we're planning to submit. So the question is, if the board does not want to submit our comments that we've worked up, then we would not have that motion.
But my question is, a point of order is that if the committee has done the work, the admirable work, then we off-site could have reviewed this information and then voted to just support your conclusions or the response, right?
Look, I'm obviously, I think I've done a great job, so I'd like to submit these comments.
No, you have.
But that doesn't mean that the board necessarily agrees. And the board has to have a right to say they agree with what's in here or they don't agree.
Okay, thank you.
So. I have to have direction from the president. I can't just make a decision.
Read the blue.
Oh, it was corrected. The whole land use committee was not a part of this. It was just
correct.
the chairs, right?
That's right.
Oh, see, that was a big part left out of that question.
This was an advisory committee that did this. So we just, can you read the blue?
I can read the blue. I will hope that it makes sense. So basically, we note with respect to comment 30 that the applicant's going to forward the request to the decision maker, and we ask that the decision maker require compliance with our request for staging construction workers and trucks away from the proposed project site. And on 31, we say that we note the applicant is going to forward again the request to the decision maker, and we note that the community knows that Coldwater Canyon is heavily trafficked, and that we're concerned that the currently that the volume already exceeds capacity for several hours a day in the canyon. I'm sorry. The applicant notes. We note that the applicant acknowledges that construction noise cannot be limited to within 5 dBAs of existing noise levels despite the incorporation of all feasible mitigation measures, and that there will be a significant and unavoidable impact from the noise. The SEC notes that the applicant estimated exterior noise increase at St. Michael's and Sunnydale at 5.5 dBAs as compared to the threshold of significance at 5.0 dBAs, and despite the various mitigation measures proposed resulting in significant and unavoidable impact on the project on the church and the preschool. The SCNC acknowledges the response to the comment and the incorporation of the request. So on 38, they responded to our request, and we acknowledge that. On 39, we don't agree that the construction and operation of the proposed project would result in traffic impacts that are less than significant. The applicant has decided to forward the recommendation regarding a traffic control monitor at the intersection of Ventura and Coldwater during the project construction to the decision makers for their consideration in taking action on the project, and we request that the recommendation be a requirement if the project is approved in any form. With respect to 40, they again are forwarding the recommendation, and we request that the recommendation become a requirement if it's approved in any form. Excuse me, 41. Again, they're forwarding the recommendation regarding a parking management program to the decision makers for their consideration. The SCNC requests that the recommendation be a requirement if the project is approved in any form. On 42, we Continue to express our concern that the proposed project will cumulatively have significant and unavoidable impacts on the environment and on the quality of life in the community. In 43, we acknowledge that the applicant responded to that comment. Okay, so, and the same with respect to the list of, where we asked them to respond to the comments of other community organizations. We acknowledge that they did that. We then go into the March letter. And just to quickly go through that, we request that the decision maker considers the fact that the proposed project involves the removal of 135,000 cubic yards of soil, and despite the proposed traffic improvements that they list above, based on the number of truck trips that would be required during the excavation phase alone, it's not realistic to say that the proposed project's construction wouldn't have a significant impact on traffic. We believe there will be a significant adverse impact on traffic through the majority of the construction period, which could be up to 30 months. We then highlight the fact that Appendix G43, there's an addendum to the haul route, which has the Tujunga and Riverside Camarillo Street on and off ramps of the 101 and those streets as the haul route. And we are concerned that this is not an appropriate location for them to go through. And the project, we say that if the project is approved in any form, that the haul route should be revised to require trucks to go from the north on Coldwater Avenue, east on Riverside, north on Vineland, onto the 170 freeway, which would prevent trucks from using that Tujunga exit, which has no signal and has been the site of recent accidents. On 11R3, we acknowledge that they responded to our comment. On 11R4, we acknowledge they responded to our comment, and they incorporated the requirement for a structural inspection of the pedestrian bridge on an annual basis following an earthquake. That's something we asked for. They agreed to it. On 11R5, we acknowledge the regulatory compliance measure RCG06, that it's been modified to require Harvard Westlake to work with the appropriate city agencies, and that they will do the monitoring on a regular basis, on an annual basis, and also after an earthquake. On 11.6, the SCNC and the community continue to have a concern that size and location of the proposed parking structure is not compatible with the surrounding environment, and we request that decision makers take the proposed project's fundamental lack of compatibility with the surrounding environment into consideration before granting any variances or approving any construction at the site. On 11R7, the proposed project involves the removal, again, of 137,000 cubic yards of soil, but based on the number of truck trips that will be required during the excavation phase alone, we believe that there will be a significant adverse impact throughout the majority of the construction period. 11.8, the construction of the proposed project is not compatible with the surrounding area. The maximum heights of the parking structure are in excess of what is allowed in that zone. Heights of 90 feet 5 inches for retaining walls in lieu of a 30-foot height limit, otherwise required by the municipal code, is not compatible with the single-family suburban area adjacent to open space conservancy land. 11R9, the conversion of public land and airspace into private property should not be done unless there's a significant community benefit to be derived. We request that the decision makers take the proposed project's fundamental lack of community benefit and its incompatibility with the surrounding environment into consideration before granting variances or approving the conversion of public land and airspace into private property. On 11R10, stakeholders adjacent to the proposed project site continue to object to the vacation of Hacienda Drive for safety reasons. On 11R11, should the proposed project be approved, stakeholders request the creation of a service access road as shown on page 2-29, figure 2-7, be connected at the top of the hill via a walking trail for approximately 100 feet to Potosi Avenue as a community benefit, and that would provide greater accessibility in the event of emergency than the existing easement via a paper road. 11R12, we acknowledge that they responded to our comment. 11R13, we acknowledge their response to the comment. However, the community continues to object to the fact that the size and magnitude of the retaining walls is not in keeping with the desirable open space designation of the area. 11R14, we don't agree with the applicant's response to that comment because the discharge of storm runoff from a concrete surface onto Coldwater Canyon Avenue, which is known to flood during storms, is not an environmentally friendly as water being absorbed into the ground and returned to the aquifer. We request that the runoff be absorbed into the aquifer, not runoff into the Coldwater Canyon Avenue. 11R15, we acknowledge that they responded to the comment. On 1116, the construction of a pedestrian bridge will be a blight on a scenic highway and detrimental to the aesthetic value of the area. So we had that concern. On 1117, we acknowledge that they responded to that comment. On 1118, the conclusion of the applicant that the proposed project is consistent with the objectives of the mobility plan isn't supported. Construction of the project will result in increased congestion in Coldwater Canyon Avenue and have an adverse impact on traffic flow. 11R19, the conclusion of the applicant that the construction vehicle traffic wouldn't generate new vehicle trips or have an adverse impact on the flow of traffic through Coldwater Canyon and across Mulholland is not really realistic. During the construction phase of the proposed project, there will be significant adverse impact on traffic in the surrounding area. 1120, we acknowledge that they responded to that comment. On 11R21, they responded and we acknowledge their response. However, we continue to advocate for the implementation of a traffic management plan, incorporating busing and carpooling in lieu of the construction of out-of-scale parking structure. In 11R22, we acknowledge that they responded to the comment as we did in 11R23. In 11R24, also, we acknowledge their response to the comment and the proposed plan to replace all coastal live oak and black walnut trees actually on the site. We were asking for them not to do any replacement of trees off-site, and they have agreed to that. On the next comment, we acknowledge that they responded. On 1126, we acknowledge the response to the comment and the potential adverse impact on traffic and safety. We then asked them to, in 1127, we note that we had asked them to confirm that the northbound left turn lane will hold an estimated 12 cars and the southbound lane would hold 8 cars, and that capacity would be adequate at peak hours. But we note that the applicant did not indicate the capacity of the lanes would be adequate in peak hours. So we continue to question that. In the next one, 1128, we note that the applicant has added mitigation measure MMAQ 11 to address the emissions issue. 1129, we request that if the proposed project is approved, that LED lighting be used on the existing athletic field as a community benefit. So we're asking for a community benefit if something goes ahead, and that's not something they've agreed to do, but we would be asking for that. 1130, we acknowledge their response to the comment. 1131, if the project's approved, we request that this is important. We're requesting that student enrollment be capped at the existing level of 900 students. They've not agreed to that, but that would be a request. 1132, we acknowledge response to the comment. The same on 1133. 1134, we acknowledge that they responded, but we request the community benefits requested in response to other comments be required if there is any approved project. In 1135, we indicate that the stakeholders continue to be concerned about the proposed project's significant unavoidable impacts and that they'll have an adverse impact on the quality of life in our community and would degrade the quality of the environment. 1136, there was no response required. 1137, 1138, the shareholders continued to object to the construction of the proposed project because it's out of scale with respect to the area, not in keeping with the objectives of the community plan. We then don't agree that the only significant impact are those listed in the responses above: the construction of the proposed pedestrian bridge across the scenic highway and a 3-story parking structure on land that's presently residential open space will permanently and significantly have permanent and significant adverse impacts on the environment and the quality of life in the community. 1139, we acknowledge the applicant for providing the temporary balloon method alternative to story poles. They're not required under CEQA to do anything with story poles, and they did do something, so we just acknowledge that. On 11R40, we acknowledge the inclusion of the responses in the comments that were raised by the stakeholders. They meticulously went through the comments of our stakeholders, which we submitted with our thing, and they provided answers to all those in the FEIR. So that's the majority of the response to those two. We then went through the summary of impacts and mitigation measures, and one of the comments from the land use chair was that the aesthetic category mitigations are highly subjective and no specific mitigation of the bridge, which creates a bold and obvious impact on the canyon. So he had a concern about that. I'm going to go through this really quickly to see where there are more. Okay, so biological resources, clearly significant and unavoidable, and conservatively considered to be cumulatively considerable. The contribution to the loss of the oak walnut woodland habitat was their conclusion there. Sorry, like trying to get through this quickly now. Okay. There may not be more here. Let me just, we're almost done. We're 62 of 67, so I'm just looking for anywhere he's specifically given. Okay, so on the noise, the land use chair notes a concern about the significant and unavoidable impacts related to noise, including truck traffic, that resulting from truck traffic. He said the project operation of the parking structure and the practice field, so it says, would not significantly impact noise level at adjacent uses, and therefore it would be less than significant. He didn't agree with that comment. He questioned the fact that the board of that there would be a less than significant impact, again, from truck trips. That's all. All right. Sorry. It's just that it's a lot, right? It's just a lot. They're big documents, and we've spent a lot of time on this before, and we take our stakeholder comments very seriously, and we're just trying to make sure that all their comments get included. So we continue to have that approach as we go forward, and of course, then the board will ultimately make a decision when there's a report to make a decision on. Because right now we don't know what we'll.
Should we turn the lights on? Yeah. I kind of like this. It's kind of fun. Yeah. Alex, are you back? Did you just make like a triumphant return back to the board?
Are we finishing this though? Are we going to finish it? I like purple. All right, we should have light.
Okay.
Okay. So the motion is. Okay, we're having lights. And then once there's lights, there'll be a motion.
There's no opportunity for public comment specific to those things, is there?
No.
Right? It's just you guys talking about it, right? Okay.
Okay.
Oh, God. I've lost her.
Is there access to that document?
Oh, it'll be transmitted. I can transmit it to every. Well, because it'll go with the letter, just like the others did. So see, every time we do this,
That's what Schiller looks like?
we issue a letter, right? This is the letter from the first time. This is the letter from the second time. So and it has all the stuff behind it. So that's what this.
That's why this framework is a layered
detailed.
framework, and it makes.
Talking to the microphone. Sorry.
Yeah, go ahead. Oh, so yes, I just wanted to thank you for the work that you've done, and I understand why you use that framework, and it's somewhat tedious to go through, but it's the structure of all of the previous environmental documents. So we're following that, and it's kind of a back and forth discussion that we're continuing here. So
This is the first time Harvard Westlake had, I'm sorry, so in this document, in the final EIR, that's the first time Harvard Westlake had an opportunity to really put their responses to what the community's concerns were. So we had to assess how they responded to those concerns. So that was the purpose of this. So, but now there's going to be a hearing, and we want the hearing officer to still hear the concerns of the community that continue to exist, right? You heard them tonight, and they're here. So that's what we're doing. So I'm going to make a motion, okay?
Right.
Okay, wait, Richard wants to.
So just briefly to follow on, so we'll submit this document in advance of the August 8th meeting, which is, I think, this is the appropriate document and format to submit our comments to that meeting. That meeting is not a decision-making meeting. It's not a decision point. It's an information collection point. The hearing officer will take into account public testimony at the meeting, this document from us as well as other documents. All of that information will then go to the Planning Commission, who is the decision-making body for the actual decision. And that for those items for which significant and unavoidable impacts remain, which are explicitly two items, the biological resource and the construction noise, it's necessary for the planning department in their recommendation report to the commission to come up with a statement of overriding considerations. In other words, why should these unmitigated, unavoidable, theoretically unavoidable impacts be overlooked, right? So that's going to be one of the pieces of information that will come out within probably 2 weeks before the commission hearing. That will be our next decision-making point for our comments to the actual planning commission, who's the decision-making body. So if that gives a little structure to the overall process.
This is our board discussion, right?
Yes.
Okay. So how does Councilman Krikorian get looped in
He
receives
our letter.
So he just receives it as a advisory to his own.
Just to be clear, is there no one from the councilman's office here tonight?
No, they are not.
So I was just curious at what point he does or doesn't, he never responds to it directly to us.
Well,
He
but
just gets this report and then
They read it and they consider it like, we will be sure that his land use chair, right, the land use,
he will get
what do they call him?
Deputy.
His land use deputy, that's the word I was looking for. We will send it to his land use deputy as well as him. And the land use deputy is really the one that's going to wade through the minutia and say, okay, the community feels this or that, and this is the result of the report they submitted. And other community organizations like the SCRA, and whoever, Save Coldwater Canyon, any other community organization, as well as the applicant itself will they will consider all of those things. But it's the land use deputy that moves that along.
Why don't we have Rita actually make the motion before we start, just so we know the exact motion.
So basically, we'd like to say that the Board of the Studio City Neighborhood Council authorizes the submission of the attached comments to the Planning Commission. That's it. That's what we want to do. We want to authorize the submission of our comments. And that's the type of motion we had with the other two letters. That's what happens at this point. And the next time we say yay or nay. But we have to know what we're saying yay or nay to, and we don't know that yet because we haven't had that report. So that's the motion. It needs a second.
Second.
Second by Rob.
Way to get that in there. Way to get that in there.
Okay. Did you want a second?
No,
Good,
no,
okay.
no, I'm
second.
Well, I know, but
he got
he's
you.
the chair. Okay, so just differential, okay?
It's okay.
All right, so
I'll third it.
you're 30,
I'll third
okay.
it.
So the board can either discuss or vote. What do you want to do?
Is there any?
Does anyone have anything to add? Anyone have a 2-minute comment they'd like to add before we vote? Yeah, Richard?
Yeah, how long is the total paperwork when you take it electronically, make it, print it out? How long is it approximately?
Well, it's about this.
Only because a lot of times you say basically, we're accepting and forwarding a document of approximately 40 pages or 100 pages, whatever.
We historically haven't done that. We submit the attached comments, and I mean, we submit all the comments that we get from our stakeholders, we put as an exhibit to this. So the comment cards for tonight where people have written down what they thought, that they'll go with the submission so that the all materials get before the planning commission that come from our stakeholders.
It's a significant report. It's like the universal report. It's really big.
Yeah, but we've submitted binders before. We never say how many pages. We just, here it is.
Yeah. Okay. Why don't we vote then?
Well, I have a comment.
Oh, of course.
Yeah. There was a point near the end where the board was acknowledging that Harvard Westlake had put up the balloons in lieu of the story poles, and that you had acknowledged that they did that. So when that gets pushed through the machine, that's going to come out that they did what they said. But I just wanted to comment that I felt that the presentation of the balloons, I think that the Save Coldwater people pointed out the kind of silliness of it, but I felt that it really was a failure. I mean, whereas you're acknowledging that they did something, I would like it if it said that what they did was not substantial or appropriate. It was confusing, they were blowing in the, it was not what one would envision. It's nothing like story poles, as the member of the public mentioned. I think he was talking about someplace in Malibu where he'd seen it. I've seen them before too. They seem to go up all over the place, and there's power all over Southern California. So I'm just concerned, having not reviewed your document, that there might be pieces there where we're cutting them a little slack, where it's not necessarily, or the other way as well, where there's things that I just haven't seen. So I'm a little bit confused about this process, whereas I think you did a great job and would like to support putting the comments into the planning, or the next meeting. I just want to be clear that nothing would preclude us from providing additional comments individually.
Absolutely.
And all of that will be considered by the body. It's not that anything that's agreed to by this vote has any binding authority of any kind.
No, it's just the submission of comments. That's all it is. And if you have anything that you want to write and submit, it will go in here as you write it, just like any other stakeholder's comment would. So
if I want to make a written submission to
Yes.
the next meeting, what's
Right.
the procedure for that? Or individuals, if they want
But
to?
at the next meeting, when we address the report, we're going to be doing an up or down vote. So if you have a comment you want to submit with this, it should go now. So you should just draft something up and send it within the next day or so. We'll get this out. So
Okay.
we're certainly willing to accept that. And the only thing that I was trying to express when I acknowledged Harvard Westlake for doing the story polls is, as I said in the presentation, they are not required, they were not required to do anything. So this was a voluntary undertaking by them. Whether we agreed with the methodology that was used or not didn't matter. I felt it was important for us to acknowledge that they did something they weren't required to do. Whether or not we thought it was adequate was
Agreed.
not. And that's all I was trying to do.
But we are judging the school's behavior and their voluntary actions and they also don't have a 10-year plan, and they're not going to do anything
And we
on the rest
noted
of it.
that.
So people have to,
Right. Eric, we specifically noted they didn't have a 10-year plan,
No, I
and
know,
we
but
noted that did not.
We noted that they met the requirement that they voluntarily,
Right.
wanted to do the balloons, and it was just silly. So that's my comment.
But we noted that they didn't have a 10-year plan, and that they did not comply with that request either, so that they weren't
Right.
responsive in that
Okay.
answer.
Can I ask one question?
Yeah, of course.
How, so all the people, all the stakeholders that commented tonight,
Mhm.
how are those verbal, how is that going to get into the report?
A lot of that is in here already because it was in the nature of the comments, because we have been through the process now twice.
Right.
So we've heard everything that we heard here tonight, we've heard before and has been incorporated in our comments. So that Harvard Westlake has had an opportunity to see that and respond to it. And it's all included because this entire package, everything from our first comment letter, the second comment letter, and now this third comment letter, all gets included the first two are included in the EIR, and now we're saying, and our response to what they said about that is now going to be included.
Perhaps can we also add the link to the meeting tonight so that all the comments
Absolutely.
can be
And
added
a lot
on
of times
package?
Peter sends me a link. Would you, when you do the link for the meeting tonight, if you would send it to me, we can include it in the letter.
Also,
And I
maybe a
think that's
transcript.
what Patrice is suggesting, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so no problem.
But maybe we could make a transcript, a written transcript, because then we could submit it as a document.
Okay.
No, that's okay.
But I think the link.
Yeah, the link,
Peter sends links all the time.
Yeah, the link will be easy enough to add to it, and if they have any questions, everything that went on here is there.
And in any event, I would imagine that a number of these comments will be repeated at the hearing on the 8th by a number of the people who
Right.
attended this meeting, right? So that I'm confident that the majority of the important topics will get on the record one way or the other.
And these comment cards are going with it, Heidi and Patrice. I'm looking at Heidi, I'm saying Patrice, I'm so sorry. Denise drafted these specific comment cards so that they would have an opportunity to write what they wanted in case they didn't get to speak, and we're going to submit these with it. So as in the past, we make every effort to get every bit of data that we can in this document to go. And so we put everything before the decision makers. They can see who said what in our community.
I have a question. Why? It a little bit feels like rules are being made up as we're going along here. Why can't the start of that motion say whether we're for or against the project outright? I don't, why, this is confusing me. It might be getting late, but let's just vote on our opinion. That's why we're here. Let's be clear of how we stand on this issue one way or the other. We seem to be able to write and say and send whatever we want. Let's vote.
Right, and what will happen is that there will be a vote once we have the report that says what it's going to be. But we don't have a thing to vote on.
We don't have all the
I have
information.
a question.
Yeah, there's nothing to vote on.
Let's
I
make
have
a
a question.
motion. We said we're going to make a motion, so let's just make a motion.
There is a motion on the table, and the motion is to submit the comments.
I have a question. I'm just curious why we're here. Well, I don't want to be a troublemaker, but we invited stakeholders and presentations, and we're not voting on an up or down vote today.
Yeah.
I thought we were.
I thought we were too.
But I'm new to this, so
But that's not what it said in the email either.
Well, that's why I saw a
And it's not
response
what's
to the
on
motion.
agenda.
No, I'm not
Right.
blame. This is not a blame.
Right.
I'm curious. I'm learning.
So-
I'm a new board member, and I'm trying to figure this out.
Agreed.
So we came here. We had stakeholders emotionally come and present something that's very, and we are getting educated as a board on how the stakeholders feel, but we had, like you said, we've had these comments before. They've been incorporated, and we're going to hear these comments again. So our entire purpose tonight was to validate the response letter and send it forward.
And the response letter was written before anything else happened tonight, so really we didn't need to go through all that.
No, but.
I mean, theoretically,
but
you know
that-
what I mean.
But this is the
Yeah.
thing, we don't, I mean, if all the stakeholders had come here tonight and
Yeah.
said, oh no, we agree this is a wonderful project, then we shouldn't be submitting this, right? But
Yeah.
that, we have to know how they feel in order, but we have had, Keith actually did a poll.
Yeah.
And he provided that to me. So I had a pretty good feel that still there was a lot of dissension in the community. And so we need to continue to put our comments
There's
forward.
a poll on Nextdoor, if
Right.
anyone wants to go
So,
check it out.
Anyhow, so there's a motion on the table,
Yeah.
and I would like to vote on the motion.
We need to vote on the motion.
So I want to call the question. Okay.
One quick thing, there's actually, I think, only about 873 students, so by 900, it's still a little bit of an increase. I don't know if we want to adjust that number or not. Does anybody cares? I don't know.
No.
We do not want them to have 23 more students. I mean, it was like giving them a little room, but like asking for a cap. Like, not, you cannot double the size of the school
Or just
is the
say
thought.
at the cap at whatever it is right now, so.
Right.
I mean, if
that-
you can
that
say
just
or
isn't how I-
approximately.
Right.
Okay.
And,
It's
and when we
close enough.
do vote on the up or down, and we're asking for specific mitigations potentially in that, one way or another, if we were asking for mitigations, we would adjust that at that time. If you wanted to say that, Heidi, we would say that at that time.
Why can't we add an amendment and add a line saying the board of the Studio City Neighborhood Council does not support the Harvard Westlake project, and we are submitting these comments
As it is now.
as it is now. Let's put it in there. This is so confusing. Just let's push this along. Policy is going to be
Okay, great.
I don't understand why not.
I understand you don't understand. We don't have all of the information we need to take a up or down vote.
I have enough information.
Okay, you may have enough information, but we don't have enough information.
I'm wrong.
Yeah, I mean, guys, this was a fact-finding meeting. We wanted to know where everyone stood. We're trying to get all of the information. We need to send information to the planning department. So when they're looking at what they're going to do, say yes, no, or in between, they have our information and they can add that to their list. Now, when they come out with whatever they're going to come out with, then everybody...
We have to know what their decision is before we vote. We can't vote on something we don't know.
Well, no, it's not a.
We can't say we approve or disapprove of a decision that hasn't been made yet.
I'm not wrong in my thinking. So
No, you're not, Craig. You're not.
Okay,
You're
guys.
not.
Okay, time out. Time out. Time out.
I'm willing to call.
I've called the question.
I'm not
Okay.
wrong, right?
Yeah.
The question has been called. We are voting. All right.
But you always make amendments when other people in other meetings. Why
Because
can't
we
make an
can't
amendment?
vote on something we don't know what it is. How do
We
you
can say
vote on
whatever we
something?
want. Can't we say whatever we want?
I've called the question, and so that's been accepted by the chair.
Which means
so
now we have to vote.
We need to vote.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
No, the question's been called. She's approved it. We need to vote now.
I
That's
feel like
part
I
of
should
the-
recuse myself.
No, we're done.
From what I hear, you're fine.
You probably should
What- I
because
mean-
of your position on the board.
Well, I have been in touch with the city attorney, and we've had emails back and forth, and he says he does not think there's a conflict of interest, but the last email was vague and ambiguous, and I don't want to do anything that's going to cause trouble.
Then-
So I don't know if...
Then I would.
Pardon me?
Abstain, recuse yourself, whatever.
Yeah.
If there's a question,
Right. If
just
there's a question, you should recuse.
recuse. Okay?
Heidi, it's gonna be fine.
You're not voting. All right.
All right.
Everyone who is for submitting this document, please raise your hand.
I don't know. Sure.
Okay.
Okay, unanimous.
Is it unanimous? Did Eric vote yes?
Yes, he actually raised his hand,
I'm sorry,
yes.
I didn't see his hand. Okay, so unanimous.
Unanimous.
But Heidi abstained.
Right.
So it's not unanimous.
I'm sorry, you said you abstained, Heidi?
Yes.
So it's not unanimous. It's,
Okay.
it
One
carried,
abstention.
but
yeah.
Heidi abstained.
Okay. All right. We're done?
And Patrice voted. I just wanted to be sure that you knew I got your name right.
Thank you all for sitting through this. On the back, they're having a seminar. If you have a business or you know somebody who wants to have a business, they'll teach you whether you want to be an LLC, a corporation, or partnership. I'm taking a motion to do a second for a motion to adjourn.
Hey,
Mr. Rob Schiller. We are adjourned.
Huh? That's what they call them. They call them old Schiller the
9:45.
Seconder.